Hello, everybody. You're very, very welcome. And I'm really very thrilled to be speaking here tonight with Andrew, who's actually, without my ever having met him, has been a mysterious part of my life for quite a long time because I would discover him on the shelves of certain bookshops. and there is, as a writer, you never know who you've reached until perhaps, years later, you do actually meet person to person. And then you realize that what they've been bringing has become a part of your life. And so it's the case with Andrew's work and his wonderful translations of Rumi and Kabir. So in the spirit of poetry and praise of creation, we're going to speak tonight about the communion of creation in which we as humans are completely immersed, and with particular attention to our animal companions, both the ones we have at home with us and the ones that we have met in the wild.
And let me say how honored I am to be in this celebration of that creation communion that we are irretrievably part of, and how amazing, if only we can awaken to it.
Yeah.
And I want to say that I absolutely love and honor the amazing work that you have done, because for me, you are doing this work of radical regeneration in writing this gorgeous book you've written. Please hold it up, because I want everybody to read this extraordinary book, Eyes of the Wild. That's what she's trying to help us gain. Eyes that awaken to the utter sacred glory of the wild. And through awakening to that outer sacred glory, claiming our inner wild, animal, divine, woken up to its enormous beauty and potency. And that's what the book is. It's a hymn of praise, it's a prayer, it's a song. And not only have you described these extraordinary and revelatory encounters with animals that you are able in your tone to convey just how much they have truly struck you down with humility and awe and adoration. That's what makes it a holy book. I thank you on truly shamanic work that you're doing. And I want people just to see that cover. Just look at the cover. Can you raise it a bit? Just look at what you have put on the cover. And you know what that is, and I know what that is, but I want to know why you put that stupendous drawing on the front. What is that drawing saying to us? Where does it come from?
This is from a rock carving along the coast of Kodiak Island in Alaska. And these are very, very ancient shamanic rock carvings, some of them certainly 3,000-4,000 years old. And the image shows 3 whales leading the human person, fin to fin, pectoral fin to human hand, pectoral fin to human hand, and with another whale ahead leading, guiding this little human swimmer in this vast ocean, the cosmic ocean, the ocean of being. And I actually was in Baja California, which is where the lagoons are, where the gray whales come to meet each other, to mate with each other, to give birth to their babies. And in that lagoon, I was many times almost overwhelmed by the grace and the beauty of consciousness that I met in these whales. And that image came to me. I met somebody who had a little book of the drawings that somebody had taken off the rocks, and I saw that image and I knew this was something that expressed what I was really trying to, I think, It's not just what I was trying to say, but what was coming to me through these encounters, through
What
these.
the earth is saying through you, what the cosmos is saying through you. It's saying, here we are, let's fall in love with each other and trust the creation. What more trusting image of the essence of reality could you have than a human being utterly surrendered in faith and trust to these two massive whales, knowing that through the whales guiding him through, he's being guided by everything essential in nature, the great, great love that's radiating through everything, so tenderly, so humbly, so simply. That's what that drawing says. It's a monumental statement, isn't it?
This is the original primal human understanding of how we
Right.
relate to other beings. Yes, exactly. And it's so natural and it's so intuitive. You know, I used to say my life changed the first time I heard the breathing of a whale. It's not so much hearing the breathing of the whale, but feeling the breathing of the whale as they emerge alongside you. And you get this enormous exhalation, which is this pulse of life that flows in and touches you inside and flows out again. And the meeting with a consciousness that is far, far beyond anything that you imagined as a human from your small human perspective. It's the original revelation, the unveiling, which is also a shattering. You know, it's a shattering of our previous mental ideas.
It's a shattering of our pretension. It's a shattering of our unspeakable hubris in thinking we are superior.
Yes.
How could you possibly think you're from a superior species when you're absolutely drowned in awe at what you're receiving from the whale?
And
right?
comes as grace, Andrew.
It's the biggest grace of all, because you realize your place in the creation and that it's a holy place if you can be in that state of humble communion, open to mystery, unknowing knowing, rapture at being, gratitude, adoration.
And it's where all the fun is.
It's where there's only fun there.
It's where all
That's the only fun there is. It's not only where the fun is, it's the only fun there is, because that's the beginnings of liberation, of playing your life as a sacrifice of love and as a prayer of praise. So and that's what the animals teach us.
Touch us directly. They touch us directly. And it's bypassing all your mental ideas. And, you know, when we were speaking, one of the things that, you know, I know is so important for you, and that is this revolution in our scientific understanding of who we are in relationship to the great communion and the community of the earth, that our previous mental ideas are found without foundation, completely baseless.
Completely.
It is a continuum of consciousness, a continuum of awareness, a continuum of emotion that flows from one to the other. And we can recognize that when we let go of those ideas that we are superior, and let go of the ideas of the hierarchy. The hierarchy is non-existent. It's networks within networks. You know, this network of beingness in which we're enmeshed, and which is supporting us and sustaining us, not only physically, but
every way, because it's all at once, isn't it? It's it's everything at once. It's the light and matter making love to each other in reality. And the animals are in that state. They help us get into that state. Yes. How could you ever feel superior to your beloved animal companion in your life? Could you ever for a moment feel superior to the being who shares your life like that?
Well, I had for a long time a very deep friendship with a horse. I mean, he was my companion, and I can say honestly, he was my teacher. He was my teacher, and he reflected back to me every moment when I wasn't being honest or true or present. And he gave me that he would flow with me in grace when I let go of trying to control him, and when it became a bond of friendship, you know. And so that beautiful experience of friendship is, that's been with me ever since, you know, that I've had that companionship and friendship, as I know you have with your beloved.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is maybe just me. I would use the word absolute love. For myself, I've never experienced such a love as I have with my cat, because we've been together for 11.5 years since she was 3 weeks old. And it's a relationship of pure mutual adoration, shameless, tender adoration. We just adore each other. We're crazy about each other, and that's it. And that is so healing, to give bliss and receive bliss from another creature who remains perpetually mysterious, radiant to me. I could never for a moment think I was a superior creature to Jade. I am learning from Jade every single time I am with her, because she's giving me something I didn't begin to imagine. She's giving me total embodied love.
How did she come to you?
Well, I had a Marine friend actually who I adored, and he came one day to see me, and he had a jacket which was rather big. So I said, "My God, you put on weight, you handsome bastard! For God's sake, take it off. You're great looking." And he giggled, and he said, "I've got something for you." And he opened his beautiful jacket, and there were 4 little kittens there. And he said, "It's time you have something to love immoderately in your life." And then he and I were very, very close friends. He loved me and I loved him. And he said, "You've got to have something just to go crazy over, otherwise you'll go crazy." So he said, "Here they are." And for 4 months, these little kittens did nothing but run up and down the curtain. And when I was trying to get to sleep, run up and down me. So I didn't sleep, but I didn't mind, because I was initiated into this completely chaotic, adorable, divine world by these absolutely insanely hyperactive kittens. And I fell in love and was shattered. And I kept 2 of them, brother and sister. And then Jade survived her brother. And now she's empress of the world.
Indeed, an empress.
I think if you put our 2 versions together, that's the relationship, isn't it? Because friendship is an incredible thing. When you use the word friendship, I think you begin to understand why the Sufis place such importance on friendship, that the ultimate relationship is with not the beloved. It's wonderful, but then you get to the secret, or even of the beloved, that is also the friend. It's on your side. It wants you to thrive. It wants you to comprehend and be transformed and love more and have more and more joy and more unity and more compassion and more sanity and insanity in your life. It wants you to have the whole enchilada in the very best way. That's what friends, right?
The true friend is on your side, of your true self, is on your side, wants you to be everything you can possibly be. And can I ask you, I was really struck by the story you told in Saving Animals from Ourselves about your meeting with Mandla at a time
of my God,
great pain, vulnerability, illness.
Well, I'll tell it, but you must tell a story of an encounter you had that really shifted you first, because you're the great master of the descriptions of those kinds of transformation. The book is really amazing. Congratulations. Tell us.
Thank you. We're going to meet in the Lionheart, because I'm also going to tell a lion story. And this is something I was completely unprepared for. I had no idea that when I was walking out through the bush with our Baye Bushman companions and guides, where we were going or who we were going to meet. We were on foot, walking single file, no weapons, because nobody in that very precious part of Botswana, that is the Okavango Delta, carries a weapon. And our main guide is a master tracker, elder Baye man led us straight across a floodplain, which is an area where the floodwaters come in each year and flow out again. Across the floodplain and into a place of low bushes, scented with the bush sage, bush jasmine, very intense odors mixed with elephant dung. And then he bent down and he pointed about 5 meters away into these bushes. And he said, look. And it took me a while, but then I saw the black tuft of the lion's tail flick up and down, up and down. And I saw the face of the, that magnificent maned masculine face of the male lion. And lying behind him, curved against him, was the female. So it was a hot afternoon and they were resting in the shade. And as we stood there, the male began to growl, not to roar, which is, which will sound that will travel 5, 6, 7, 8 miles, but a growl, right? That goes into your bones, into your flesh, into your chest. And so I could feel this resonance coming from the lion's deep growl into me. And I realized he was actually seeing me through my clothing. Felt like I was naked. That's what it felt like. It felt like I'm naked before this incredibly magnificent and potentially dangerous animal. And I looked at our guide, Sam, and he was standing there and he was completely relaxed. And a wave of calm came back from him to me. And I felt like my entire being just sank down into this deep groundedness. And I could stand there and receive this sound. And I learned afterwards that one of the names, the traditional names among the Baye people for the lion is the hollow space inside the chest. So you're resonating inside. And then he said, now it's time to go. So we walked away, leaving them in peace. And I walked away from there in a completely different state because my mind had been silenced completely. It was like that sound had shaken out all my thinking. It had shaken out my fear because I wasn't afraid at all. And I was in a state of so much like peace and inner spaciousness and quiet that I was walking as though I wasn't touching anything, It was like I could only be a benign, loving presence. I wasn't disturbing anything as I walked through the bush. And that was the most extraordinary blessing. And it came without any plan or preparation on my part. And it was afterwards I learned that traditionally, and indeed for probably thousands of years, the San people, the Baye Bushman people have lived in this harmonious accord with the lions. And as a child, our guide had been taken to meet the lions and told, look, meet the lion, look into the lion's eyes, don't be afraid, this is your friend. Here is your friend. And he told me, he said, and once you've made that contact, he said, then the lion is like, and he just made this gesture as though he were caressing the lion. So I'd been allowed into an ancient intimacy established by both the human partner and the lions, which allowed us to meet without any fear. And I felt the lion's voice came from the great silence and transmitted the great silence.
Just let's sit with that. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
As I was listening to you, I was remembering how much I loved the prose of your book because it sings like you speak. singing a song itself. It's pulsing with the music of adoration and gratitude, and doing so in a very down-home, utterly humble and selfless way, which is a sign of how deeply they have changed you, the relationships you've encountered have really changed you. And why Carolyn and I put saving animals from ourselves in the core of radical regeneration is because it's in that book that we get to our own deepest passion. And it's in that book that we really, really try and help everyone be transformed by animals, to be able to claim their animal divine soul, be nourished by this great natural communion that is always bursting out of the heart of love through reality. That's the force of radical regeneration. That's love naked in action. And what we've been trying to do in this tremendous quartet that we brought together, this is what the enterprise is. The enterprise is really trying to describe this new birthing consciousness coming through this absolutely devastating crisis. And this new birthing consciousness is grounded in the old birthing consciousness, which is what you were initiated into. That's where it starts. That's where it's nourished from, that primal sense of I belong to this, right?
Exactly, exactly, exactly. I belong with all these beings, and I'm known and recognized.
Loved.
And loved.
When you turn up in that relationship of awe and reverence and calm and acceptance that your Bushman guide was, when you turn up in that relationship, everything recognizes you as a lover, a friend, and is a lover and a friend back to you out of that primordial recognition, which is the purest form of love. Isn't it? It's not that there's a transcendent love or a immanent love. There is a love that is both at once, and that's that love, right?
Absolutely, and you are recognized. You're known for this note that comes. They hear the note of your heart, and to be known as you really are, and complete acceptance. And I remember I had a very beautiful mentor about wolves. He's a wolf specialist, a scientist, but he's no ordinary wolf scientist, because he went to live with a pack of wild wolves, as you read in my book. And as he
It's the most astonishing bit of the book for me. Yeah, please.
It is astonishing. And I first heard it over a bottle of very good Georgian red wine in Tbilisi.
That will help that particular part. I can think, oh God, no, it's, yeah, please plunge in. It's so exciting.
So I met what I thought was a sober scientist, and somebody that opened the gates into a world of fairy tale, and something that seemed to belong only to the imagination, and that is the reconciliation between the human and this being that has been so degraded in our minds and has been loaded with our, projections of negativity, of violence, of aggression, completely unjustly. And he told me that evening, he began to tell me the story. And he said to me, for me, the most beautiful feeling in the world has been to meet the wolf and know that I am no longer an enemy.
Yes.
No longer an enemy. So for 2 years, for long periods of time, living only in the shelter of a thick Caucasus shepherd's cloak, he lived with a particular family of wolves. He refused to use the word pack because he said that is not the true nature of a wolf community. It's a family. they lived together as a family. And he said this particular family, they had, you know, you had the mother, the father, you had the young ones, you had also an elder who was partly lame, but who always had food from them. And he said to me that the most beautiful feeling for him was to realize that he'd been accepted. And there were two critical moments when he knew that he was accepted by this wolf family. And the first one was when he woke up in the night, wrapped in his thick shepherd's cloak, and he thought, oh, it's raining outside. And he pulled it away to have a look, and there was the male, the father, who was actually urinating on top of him to make sure that he shared their smell. That was a moment of being welcomed into
Blessed, yeah.
And the second moment, he said, that he really knew that he'd been accepted was that he used to sleep with them on their, wolves, when they get together, they have these places where they go on a regular basis, and they're called rendezvous sites. And if the family separates, they'll come back and they'll all meet together in this area. So he used to sleep with them on these rendezvous sites. And at first, he used to want to know where each one was. He was uncomfortable with not knowing if one was behind him or if one was out of sight. And so he was a little bit like anxious. And then he said it came to a certain moment when he didn't need to look. He knew where each member of the family was without looking. And he said, after that, I never had a moment's fear. He'd been integrated into this wolf community. And when you think
into wolf consciousness,
into wolf, exactly.
That's the amazing revelation for me.
Yes.
He became, in a certain sense, a wolf, and through that becoming imbued with wolf consciousness, he was utterly transformed, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was a most remarkable. He is a most remarkable and beautiful man, and so he's been my mentor, and perhaps the most astonishing story that he told me was having become part of this wolf family, becoming accepted by the wolf family, smelling of his wolf family. He used to follow them hunting. He would, run with them. And one evening he was coming back from a long, he said he was very, very tired. He didn't even, so tired, he was almost stumbling over his feet, and he didn't really know where he was going. And he accidentally disturbed a brown bear, a large Caucasus brown bear. And he said the bear was as astonished and as scared as he was, but it went, up on its hind legs. And at that moment, the male of the family immediately turned back and drove the bear, went straight for the bear and drove it away.
Wow.
And of course, a shocked bear is potentially a dangerous bear. So the wolf was putting himself at risk.
Wow.
Because he could easily.
So moving.
This was one animal ready to sacrifice himself for the human who had joined his family. Yeah. The friend who'd become their friend. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I've had a wolf come to me and look into my eyes, which I had this experience when I was among some orphaned wolves in Russia, young wolves. And one of the females, she came straight up to me and put her paws here on my, just against my chest. And she looked into my eyes very intently. And she was against my chest, so I could, without realizing it, I was also feeling her heart. And from this point, I just felt this warmth spreading out through my body, an inner resonance of meeting the heart of the wolf in her. And I can still see her eyes, this gaze, and it's really why I call the book Eyes of the Wild, because that meeting of eye to eye, where you're seeing into that deep essence, and and you're not separate from each other.
So
Mm.
as you're speaking, I'm not going to tell the story of Mandla. I'm going to tell another story
Please
because
do. Yes.
in honor of the eyes of the wild,
Mm.
I was about 28 and I was staying in a group of flats owned by a Mexican friend of mine. And it was close to the old Ambassador's Hotel, which is a beautiful old shambling hotel in Old Delhi, New Delhi. And I came out one morning after breakfast to go for a walk and saw a dog being run over and shoved into a filthy puddle at the side of the road, dying with its back broken.
Hmm.
And I went over to this dog and was absolutely petrified and agonized by the pain that it was in. So rushed into the Ambassador Hotel and said, look, you must help. There's a dog dying outside that's just been run over. And the guy behind the desk looked at me very kindly and said, sir, there are human beings dying of starvation all over India at this moment. What do you expect us to do about a dog? And suddenly I was hit over the head with the atrocious sanity of what he had said. So all that was left for me to do was to go and sit by the dog. That was all I could do. Thank God I did, because the dog just looked at me until it died. And that look was a look of utter acceptance, utter surrender, no fear, complete peace, complete calm, no hysteria. And I realized that dog was utterly accepting of death because it knew that it could not die. Life would not die. It was a dog. Being a dog initiates you into certain things, and that dog initiated me into that. And the only other place I've ever seen that case, the eyes of Ramana Maharshi, that's those eyes that are so tender and so lucid.
Mm.
Same eyes, the eyes of the wild, the eyes of the true self, the eyes of the child, the mother, father, the eyes of those are the eyes of this new kind of divine humanity that is trying to be born, that our book, Radical Generation, is a book that tries to give the maps of that birth as far as we can. And one essential part of that is what we are sharing right now.
Mm.
The essential challenge, rapturous, amazing challenge to every single human being to fall irretrievably in love with the to just realize just how amazing, awe-inspiring, ecstatically beautiful, ecstatically scary, unbelievably mysterious, this amazing creation that we are born into and secretly one with. How utterly amazing. And from that amazement, that awe, comes real radical experience like the ones you've had.
Mm.
Because when the friend knows that it's loved, it gives you those experiences radically and unforgettably.
Mm.
Just as it did to me with Mandla, because you were initiated by a lion into this vast sacred emptiness of the heart. And I was initiated by a lion into the vast flame of courage that's born from that vast emptiness of the heart,
Mm.
vast spaciousness. Because what he did really changed my whole way of being and my work and everything. I had gone to South Africa to be with the White Lions. I have been utterly transformed in my vision of the world by the relationship that I've had with them through their grace and through the grace of the Mother, because they have shown me in ever quietly, calmly ascending ways, they've shown me that what they are, their white radiance is the embodied divine love light in nature. They are that purest, holiest, most naked, most fierce, most beautiful, most tender imagined manifestation of the heart of love. That's what they are. And there were many revelations that happened with them, through them, that got me down with them in that naked light that they are. But the most amazing of them all, and the most revelatory, happened when I went, after several visits back, for a personal visit. And I was with one of my best friends, and I was feeling unbelievably well and happy to be with him and in this completely astounding place. And I said to him one morning, I've never felt better in my life. And that afternoon I had a massive gallbladder attack and explosion. And I was in the back of a cab, going across bumpy roads in the bush, getting from one totally remote place to the only remote clinic that was in that area to save my life. And it was the most amazing experience, because I really left my body and seeped into everything and felt absolutely no fear of death, and had to go through this massive operation, 6-hour operation, which did save my life, and was reborn from that experience. And I went back to the camp where I'd been with my mother, and he'd been put into an enclosure because he'd been in a fight with another lion. And I, in my crazy mind, thought that I would go as this warrior that'd been through all the shattering, this crazy attack of the gallbladder, through this operation that I nearly died in. I'd go and commiserate with the other old guy. So that was my plan, but it wasn't his plan at all. I turned up, and I was in my sense of battered majesty. The real majesty strode across the boma and sat about 6 feet from the Jeep and looked up at me with this unbelievably fierce, tender eyes, and just gave this monumental roar at me, which went into every part of my being. And that roar wasn't "you idiot" or "you stupid fool." It wasn't judgment. It was saying, this is what it is to be a warrior of love. You just suck it all up and get going again. Don't waste time on self-pity. Love demands sacrifice, demands fights, demands getting shattered sometimes. You just accept the price and stop whining. Because the sooner you stop whining, the more effective you'll be, the more real you'll be, the more divine you'll be, the more human you'll be, and the more useful you'll be. So stop whining right now. And here's what will help you, which is my complete, embodied, divine, glorious, golden strength in mind and heart and soul, and in the cells of your body. Because that's how I live, and I'm going to give you a blast of that pure divine life right now, raw. So it was simultaneously a warning and an irradiation. And I learned from that the birth is taking place, both in this great ascending light that is coming down to do it and creating a horrific crisis, which is the birth canal. But I realized that the birth is also taking place from the very heart of nature itself. It's what nature is in its essence, that birthing force displayed in its glory. That was a huge, huge, humbling, huge, huge help.
That voice, it's like the embodiment of light.
Exactly.
And it goes into you at a level deeper than you can't prepare for that.
It's naked mantra.
It's naked,
with
yeah.
1,000 tons of quiet, invisible fire behind it. It's got the absolute authority of law
Mm.
in it. It's divine order that's expressed through the lion. The lion guards the divine order of nature. That is the lion's great charism.
Mm.
And the white lions guard the soul of the world by embodying it in its rawest, purest form to give us a reconnection to our rawest, purest form so that we can become the protectors of life, the celebrators of life, the humble servants of the wisdom of our fellow animals, not their destroyers, their insane, self-drunken, maniacal annihilators that become, which is so frightening and such a devastating message about our obscene dissociation from truth.
And look where we put them. Look where we've put that,
Them.
and still, then one of the great lion spirits comes and gives you that transmission directly. And it is, when I heard that, I would lie in my tent and hear them at night, listen to the way the night air was vibrating with their roaring. And it brings you straight into that depths of the great silence. And that's why we're able to receive it without fear, because it has nothing to do with our mental projections about what animals are or how dangerous animals are or what.
Oh
It's
God, no, you're not in that space. You can't have thoughts like that there.
None whatsoever. In fact, yeah. Yeah.
You just are so blown apart by wonder.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Exactly.
That's how I experience being around them. I am blown apart by the wonder of their being really who they really are. So simply. And if you're able, through grace, to receive the wonder of that transmission, it really does change everything. Because when I first really got that they are incarnations of the light, the white lions, and all lions, that just brought me to my knees in amazement at what nature is, the nature that we are so deaf to turn our back on, that is our mother savior, that is the source, that is the bath of tender fire where we can renew ourselves and be born again like Rider Haggard's she. That's where the force is. That's the force, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the most incredible revelation. But I think it's a revelation that you don't have to have only on that kind of exalted level. I think it's a revelation that's waiting for you in your most intimate relationships with your own love companions, with your pets, because you have to be a pretty bedraggled human being in a relationship with an animal not to start to wonder, where does this unbelievable love, there's such monsters all come from? What is this miracle that's living in them? Is it in me too? Can I become more sensitive and open so that I can commune with them more deeply, with deeper gratitude for the absolutely mad love they're showering on me, thereby saving my life.
Saving our lives. Yeah. Saving our lives, because the self-destruction that we are going through right now, this is to save our lives. I used to think it was up to us as humans to somehow save the natural world, save the animals, save the planet. It's not. It's to receive what's being offered to us to save our humanity.
Love that. Can you say that again? Because that's such an important revelation. Yeah. Please say it again. Yeah. It's so important that people hear that, because that's the core of our book. Yeah. My book, your book, it's the core, isn't it? Please say it again.
Yeah. you know, I spent many years as working for different conservation groups and being a so-called environmental activist, and thinking that it was up to us humans to save wild nature, to save the animals, to save the planet. We're utterly incapable of saving the planet. We are being offered to be, by them, we're being offered the renewal of our humanity. And that's what comes first. Not that
That's
we can
it.
do anything, but to be saved by what we love. And I think, you know, that we ourselves are saved by our love. And that spontaneously arises through the wonder and the, you know, and the childlike awe and delight and absolute joy of, you know, being alive and part of the natural world, and having our animal friends and companions who see us as we truly are, without any judgment whatsoever, and who support us and sustain us in so many invisible ways. And we stand at, you know, just bring you another story, Andrew, and that is, again, in the bush in the Okavango Delta with our Kalahari friends, and I was with my husband, and we were always on foot. And after that initiation through the being able to stand and receive the lion's voice inside, and through that quietness, the animals didn't run away from us. They didn't move away. In fact, they came closer. And so we would have a group of impala, and normally, you know, I was always taught,
Very shy. Impala is very difficult to
very
get
shy,
close to. Yeah.
very shy, and they're flight animals, so they would normally move away. And we realized not only were they not moving away, but they would start approaching, and they would look at us, and something had changed. And something had changed in our awareness and in our energetic connection that allowed them to feel that we weren't a disturbance. And so day by day, this got stronger, until we came to the point where, again, on foot and just standing on with a little bit of height on a termite mound, and just looking around, you know, what's happening this evening. And I saw 4 elephants appear out of some cover, and I heard this deep rumble, you know, this deep, deep rumble that came straight towards us. And it was a male with a female and 2 youngsters. And I heard the rumble, and that was the signal. In elephant language, it's like, let's go, okay? It was gathering them together, and the female headed straight towards us, with the male accompanying her because he was in courtship mode. And where she was going, he was going. And then her two children at her other side. And we, without looking at each other, we realized they're coming to us, right? They're coming right towards us. And it was so clear, it was their decision.
God almighty. Yeah.
And we just stood there and let them come. There's nothing else you could do. And the thought flashed through my mind, I may die here. I may die here. And then it went. And their approach wasn't just a physical approach. It was like bringing this, we were standing surrounded by the field of elephant being, of elephant consciousness. They just wrapped it around us. I was standing inside it. And the female was the first to come. She was standing right in front of my husband. I was next to him. And then she moved a little to the side, and the male, who's much, much bigger, he came right in front of us. So close I could have reached out and touched him on the trunk. And I just bowed my head to who they really are. And you're so far beyond your normal thinking mind, what you think of as your everyday self. It's vanished. There's no place here for it. And you're
There's no place for anything but adoration, is there?
Yeah.
Sorry, Danny, I just was so struck and overwhelmed by what you're saying. It's, please go on. It is adoration that gets you through everything, isn't it? Because if you're able to be like you were, to bow your head, you just have to bow your head and acknowledge the majesty and the superiority and intelligence you're overwhelmed by.
Majesty of our elders on this earth, who know far more than we do about what it is to live a wise, graceful, and beautiful life.
How wonderful to end there, because the elephants are the elders of the earth and the whales are the elders of the sea.
Mm.
And between elephant wisdom and whale wisdom, if we open to both with lion initiation thrown in as a great ring of fire to activate everything in us, we would be able to be and do anything at this moment, because we would be fueled by the force of radical regeneration, raw love in communion, in action.
Yeah.
And all the stories that we've been sharing are really stories that bounce from that first picture you held up of your wonderful book, The Eyes, and your story of the elephant. Everything is strung like beads on that mysterious golden string.
It is the great mystery. That's the great mystery.
Yes. And it doesn't get less mysterious, does it? It gets more mysterious.
More mysterious. Even more mysterious.
When you're saying the elephant, I was thinking of the exact opposite, which gave me also not a comparable initiation, but one that was immensely important for me. It changed so much. I was in Oregon and I was walking at dusk along one of the most gorgeous raw beaches in the world. Nothing is like that. Oregon West Coast. It's so, you're so alone in it, and you're alone with that naked majesty everywhere. And I was very overjoyed. And suddenly I saw this big wave coming towards me. And I saw on the rock in front of me this tiny little insect. And split second, I put my finger down, the insect hopped onto my finger. I opened my palm, it came into the center of my palm. The wave passed, didn't kill the insect. And the insect was dancing with ecstasy in the center of my palm in a way that I felt these energies of ecstasy go down my wrist, literally, physically. There was fire coming from that dancing of, I love you, I'm so grateful, thank you, I know you love me, we're just having wild fun together, and fire coming down my wrist. I thought, am I going utterly crazy, or am I finally becoming a little sane? And I decided on the second that we simply don't know what's available to us, that a little insect can change your life when you have just spontaneously loved and celebrated it by saving its life, is something that no mystical text ever prepared me for. It was something I just had to be graced by to begin to understand. And how amazing that we'll never understand it. We can't. We can only live it. We can only be available, naked and vulnerable and ecstatic and full of wonder for it. And it will come if we are. That's, we can be certain of. Right?
Absolutely.
That's the great good news for everyone that we're in both of our books giving. I mean, you're giving this great good news of this fundamental love force that animals radiate, and we can enter into them, through them and with them. That's the message. Such an important message. It's a message by saving themselves. And we're giving the same message in a different way. We're saying there is a birthing energy in this chaos. And that birth has two aspects. It has the aspects of really mutating the human race into a conscious divine human being, someone who is fully human and fully divine together, the great secret meaning of human evolution. And the other great force, which has to be lived at the same time, is the force that you're so beautifully manifesting and talking about, the force of loving so much that you act to help preserve and honor and respect and see that justice is done. That is the other force. And if you bring those two forces, the forces of the alignment with the great evolutionary push to a new kind of love embodied, and the second force, which is love embodied in action, then you unite those two and you have the fuel for radical regeneration, for becoming awake to the mystery that you're describing and being filled by that awakening with a great resolve to turn up and give everything for the birth of humanity.
We've been given so much, Andrew. We have received so much. So much.
Oh God.
So much. It's humbling. It is so humbling when we realize this. We've been given so much. And
more as we grow older too. That's what's so wonderful. So everybody who's an elder out there, honestly, it gets much wilder and much better as you fall apart into it. And that's what old age is for. An honorable falling apart into the mystery, so the mystery can show you just how amazing it is, because thank God your heart expands so deeply. And most of all, in my case, and I'm sure in your case, through our relationship with our animals, just the great heart expander in my life is my cat. She is the constant reminder that life is divine. There she is. She's totally beautiful. She's totally brilliant. She's unbelievably wise. She's ecstatically present. And every time I look at her, I realize, oh my God, there's God with fur.
fantastic.
But it's not rocket science. It's just how it is, right?
It's God meeting God.
Yeah, so simply, so ordinarily, no fancy stuff, no flashing lights, just life at its most sacred and most intimate and most down home. That is love.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
And that's the force that can save the world, save us, save the world from being destroyed. Or if it has to be destroyed, give us the strength to go through that destruction with dignity. We don't know what the results are yet, but we know that if we continue as we are, we're going to cause our annihilation and the annihilation of a great deal of nature. And a lot of us are waking up to the knowledge that if we admit what we're beginning to be taught, that there's a great revelation of love coming, and it coming from the most ancient sources and marrying all the new possibilities of evolutionary transformation. If we can open to that, then miracles are possible. Miracles we can't even spell. You didn't know what you'd feel before the elephants enfolded you. You didn't know that existed on the earth.
No idea.
You didn't know that with the whales. You didn't know that with the wolves. You didn't know that. You didn't know that because you enter into another radiance, another possibility.
Yeah.
And this is what the whole human race is going through now. This terrifying process that is forcing us to open to absolutely new, radical, but grounded and amazing possibilities that are being born directly out of our greatest danger. What an extraordinary coincidence of opposites. But God is the coincidence of opposites. This is God, Godding.
You know, I realized at a certain point that, of course, we're loved by the earth. The earth brought us into being, and the basket was woven by all the other animals, by all the other plants, where we were born into this dimension. The way was prepared for us. Everything was made ready for us. There's this, the earth loves her human children and does not want us to be destroyed.
she wants us to be transformed
To be
by
transformed.
love so that we can have the most wonderful lives. Because you can only have a wonderful life if you're truly increasingly awed by what life really is, a constant evolution of divine beauty and passion and alchemy. That's life.
And the
And
great
you'll
adventure.
never, ever, ever get to that adventure without really risking your life inside and outside, because you have to pay for the diamond. But that's fine, because as soon as you see it even glinting, you realize it's worth everything, because it makes you so humbly joyful at being alive. So great to be in the constant stream of this fire of transformation, refining yourself and becoming more loving and braver day by day by day through the grace of the beloved, grace of the Mother. Such an incredible gift that we're being given in the middle and through this utter calamity that we are living. Isn't that amazing?
It truly is. It truly is.
My darling, I hate ending, because this has been such a wonderful journey we've taken together. I'm so happy to have had the privilege of celebrating your work, uniting it with the deep meaning of this new book of mine and Carolyn Baker's Radical Generation. Because we are warrior midwives in the same wild, loving army of the new earth. And because there is a deep soul connection between all of those who are doing this work now. Because we all know it is 2 minutes to midnight. But we all also know that that doesn't mean the end. That means that the beginning is about to explode. And we have the task of laying the radiant bomb in such a way that they help this great explosion of this ancient new force. And that's what you're doing so beautifully in wonderful book, Eyes of the Wild, which I beg everybody to read and to imagine listening to in the gorgeous voice that you've heard from Eleanor. I could just sit here and listen to you tell stories for day after day after day. And I beg you to read your book slowly and in that gorgeous voice of yours, and really put through it animal sounds, the sounds of the elephants, the sounds of the wolves, the sounds of birds, just the raw sound. Can you imagine how that could set the beauty of what your great prose poem is? About just a thought, I would love to hear that. And I'm so grateful that we have met in this moment when we know the birth is here. That's because despite ourselves, we're living it.
We're in it.
We're in it.
We are.
Yeah. I love you, darling. Thank you so much. Bless you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I know you have to go. I'm just going to stay on for a few minutes if anybody has some questions or.
And darling, send this to all of your group, please. And I send it to me so I can send all of you, with your permission, to all of my groups. And our groups can truly meet each other's hearts and celebrate these books and get these books out as ways of helping people wake up in ways that will only make them so much happier and joyful and more purposeful.
So much happier, and the healing of all our depression and frustration and sense of inadequacy as well.
God, especially that dreadful sense of inadequacy. Animals never feel inadequate until we brutalize them. They're totally, they don't even ask that question. They're in a state of grace, but we can be through their grace too.
Has your cat Jade ever woken up in the morning and said, I don't feel up to it this morning?
No, she wakes up every morning knowing that she's the most beautiful and adored creature in the cosmos. She knows that, and she imposed that knowledge on me, and I became its slave and just obeyed. That's it.
Fantastic.
In my slavery, I found freedom. Yeah. That's the way of the cat, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Mm,
I
mm.
love you, darling. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Bye bye.